Maybe you've got a backyard. Maybe a few acres. Maybe you retired somewhere quiet and finally bought that piece of land you've always wanted. And now you're looking at it every morning asking the same question. How do I actually make this land productive? Land by itself doesn't create income. A lot of people spend years maintaining property that costs them money every single month. Property taxes, repairs, equipment, maintenance. The land sits there, beautiful, peaceful, and completely unproductive. But what if that same piece of land could become a source of food, income, and long-term financial security? Not with hundreds of acres. Not with expensive machinery. Not with a six-figure investment. Just by choosing the right animals. And that's where things get interesting. Because most people assume the most profitable farm animals are the biggest ones. Cattle, horses, large livestock. The animals that look impressive. But when you start looking at the numbers, something surprising happens. Many of the highest return livestock operations in America are built around animals small enough to fit in a backyard. In fact, some farmers are generating more income per acre from a few carefully selected animals than larger operations earn from dozens of acres. That's not theory. That's happening right now. And it explains why some people quietly turn a small property into a serious source of income while others struggle to make their land pay for itself. Today we're counting down the 7 most profitable farm animals in 2026. Not based on hype. Not based on wishful thinking. But based on startup costs, income potential, space requirements, market demand, and the numbers that actually matter for ordinary people. But stay with me until the end. Because the animal sitting at number 1 requires less space than most garden sheds, starts producing income in a matter of weeks, and outperforms livestock 10 times its size when measured by return on investment. Most people never see it coming. Let's begin. At number 7 we have turkeys. Now before you scroll away thinking turkeys are boring, consider this. Most people only think about turkeys twice a year. Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that's exactly why smart farmers pay attention to them. Because while everyone else sees a holiday tradition, small farmers see something completely different. A predictable seasonal shortage. Every year millions of families want a high-quality turkey. Not the frozen supermarket bird. Something better. Pasture-raised. Slow-grown. Locally produced. And they're willing to pay surprisingly high prices to get it. That's where the opportunity starts. A heritage turkey can sell for $10 to $20 per pound directly to consumers. A finished bird may weigh 20 pounds or more. Do the math. One bird can generate several $100s in revenue. Now imagine a small flock of 25 birds. Suddenly, this isn't a hobby anymore. It's a legitimate seasonal business. And here's the interesting part. You don't need hundreds of acres. You don't need expensive infrastructure. Many successful turkey growers start with simple fencing, basic shelter, and a manageable flock size. But here's what separates profitable turkey farmers from everyone else. They don't wait until November to find customers. They start selling months before the birds are ready. Some farmers create waiting lists in summer. Others take deposits. By the time Thanksgiving arrives, every bird is already spoken for. The sale happened months ago. The turkey just hasn't been delivered yet. That's a completely different business model than hoping buyers show up at the last minute. And it reveals an important lesson you'll notice throughout this list. The most successful farmers don't simply raise animals. They build markets. Now here's the downside. Turkeys can be seasonal. They require attention. And they don't generate income year-round like some of the animals higher on this list. Which is exactly why they only come in at number 10. Because the animal at number 9 can generate revenue all year long. It requires less space, lower startup costs, and most people completely underestimate its potential. Let's talk about ducks. At number 6 we have ducks. If chickens are the celebrity of backyard farming, Ducks are the quietly successful neighbor nobody pays attention to. And that's a mistake. Because while most people are busy competing in the chicken market, duck owners are often selling into a market with less competition and higher prices. But that's only part of the story. The real advantage starts during winter. Most chicken owners know what happens when temperatures drop. Egg production falls. Sometimes dramatically. Customers still want eggs. But the supply shrinks. That's where ducks become interesting. Many duck breeds continue laying through periods when chickens slow down. And when everyone else has fewer eggs to sell, duck owners still have customers waiting. Simple economics. Less supply. Strong demand. Higher value. Now here's something many people don't realize. Duck eggs aren't simply chicken eggs from a different bird. They have their own market. Bakers love them. Many chefs prefer them. And customers looking for something different often pay premium prices to get them. Which means a small flock can generate surprisingly attractive returns. But ducks have another advantage that has nothing to do with eggs. Pest control. Imagine walking through your garden early in the morning. No chemicals. No pesticides. No expensive treatments. Just a group of ducks doing what ducks naturally do. Eating insects. Eating slugs. Eating pests that would otherwise destroy crops. Some small farmers actually use ducks as part of their production system. The ducks get food. The garden gets protection. And the farmer spends less money. That's what smart farming looks like. Systems working together. Now here's the downside. Ducks are messy. Very messy. Give a duck clean water and it will immediately find a way to make it dirty. That's simply part of the deal. But for people willing to manage that challenge, ducks can become one of the most versatile animals on a small property. Eggs. Meat. Pest control. Multiple opportunities from one flock. And yet they're still only number 6. Because the animal at number 5 introduces something many small farmers dream about. 4 income streams from a single animal. Let's talk about sheep. At number 5, we have sheep. This is where the list starts getting serious. Because most people think sheep are simple. Grass goes in. Wool comes out. End of story. Not even close. The truth is that a well-managed sheep operation can generate income in several completely different ways. And that's exactly why experienced farmers pay attention to them. Let's start with meat. A quality market lamb can command impressive prices when sold through the right channels. Not because sheep are rare. Because demand often exceeds local supply. Many communities actively seek lamb and are willing to pay premium prices for locally raised animals. But meat is only the beginning. Now add wool. And suddenly the same animal starts producing another income stream. For hand spinners and fiber enthusiasts, high-quality fleece can be remarkably valuable. Especially when farmers focus on breeds known for exceptional wool. Then there is breeding stock. Good genetics always have value. Farmers looking to improve their flocks are willing to pay for healthy, productive animals. And in some situations, dairy sheep introduce yet another opportunity entirely. One animal. Multiple revenue streams. That's a theme you'll notice among many successful agricultural businesses. The more ways an animal can create value, the stronger the operation becomes. But sheep come with a challenge. And it's one of the reasons beginners sometimes struggle. Parasites. A sheep can look healthy one week and develop serious problems the next if parasite management is ignored. Experienced shepherds understand this. They rotate grazing areas. They monitor animal health carefully. And they treat prevention as seriously as production. Because in livestock farming, protecting profit is just as important as creating it. Now here's something that surprises many new farmers. Compared to cattle, sheep often require less land, lower startup costs, and less financial risk. That's a major reason they attract people with smaller properties. You don't need a massive ranch. You need a good system. And that's often the difference between farmers who succeed and farmers who struggle. But the animal at number 6 teaches an even bigger lesson. Because it's one of the most profitable livestock businesses on this list. And also one of the easiest ways to lose money if you don't know what you're doing. Moving on to number 4, we have pigs. Now here's where the list becomes dangerous. Because pigs have created more farming success stories and more farming disasters than almost any other animal on this countdown. And the reason comes down to a mistake beginners make over and over again. They assume all pigs are profitable. They're not. In fact, thousands of small farmers discover this lesson the hard way. They buy feeder pigs. They raise them for months. They spend money on feed. They spend money on fencing. They spend money on housing. Then they sell into the commodity market and realize something shocking. There is almost no profit left. Sometimes none at all. That's why experienced farmers don't compete with industrial pork producers. They play a completely different game. And that game starts with differentiation. Instead of selling the same product as everyone else, they focus on heritage breeds. Berkshire, Tamworth, Duroc, Mangalitsa. Breeds known for flavor, quality, and customer demand. Because the moment you're selling directly to families, restaurants, or specialty buyers, the rules change completely. Now you're not competing on volume. You're competing on quality. And quality pays. A family buying half a hog for their freezer isn't comparing your pork to the cheapest package in a supermarket. They're comparing it to every premium food experience they've ever had. That's why some small pig farmers earn more from a handful of animals than others earn from much larger operations. But that's only one opportunity. The second opportunity is breeding stock. And this is where many people get surprised. A high-quality registered breeding animal can sell for hundreds, or even thousands, of dollars. Not because it's bigger. Not because it's rare. Because good genetics save other farmers time and money. And farmers are willing to pay for that. Now here's the warning. Actually, it's more than a warning. It's a rule. Never wait until your pigs are ready for processing before calling a processor. By then it's already too late. In many parts of the country, processing facilities are booked months in advance. Miss your appointment and suddenly your carefully planned timeline falls apart. Feed costs continue. Animals continue growing. Expenses continue increasing. That's why successful pig farmers plan the exit before they start the project. A lesson that applies to almost every business. Know how you're getting paid before you begin. Now moving on to the animal sitting at number 3. An animal that has helped countless small landowners turn rough, overgrown property into productive ground. An animal famous for escaping fences, eating almost anything, and creating opportunities where other livestock struggle. At number 3, we have goats. If there were an award for the most underestimated business animal on a small property, goats would be near the top of the list. Because most people see goats and think of one thing: trouble. The fence climbers. The escape artists. The animals that somehow end up exactly where they're not supposed to be. And to be fair, that reputation isn't entirely undeserved. But what many people never discover is that those same goats can turn land that looks almost worthless into something productive. Imagine buying a piece of property. The grass is overgrown. Brush is everywhere. Weeds are taking over. Most people see a cleanup problem. Goat owners see lunch. And that's one reason goats have become so valuable. They thrive in places where many other livestock struggle. Steep ground. Brushy land. Areas filled with weeds. Places that would cost hundreds or thousands of dollars to clear with machinery. Goats often handle naturally. And sometimes people will actually pay you to bring goats onto their property. Think about that. The animal is eating. The landowner is saving money. And you're getting paid. Everybody wins. But land clearing is only part of the story. Because goats have something many profitable businesses share. Multiple income streams. A dairy goat can produce milk. That milk can become cheese, soap, yogurt, value-added products that often sell for far more than the raw ingredient itself. Then there are meat goats. And here's a fact that surprises many Americans. Goat meat is one of the most consumed meats in the world, more than many people realize. And demand continues to grow in numerous communities across the country, which creates opportunities for producers who understand their local markets. Then there's breeding stock. Once again, quality genetics create value. Good animals produce good animals, and farmers are willing to pay for proven bloodlines. Now here's the challenge. Actually, it's the same challenge that has humbled countless new goat owners. Fencing. Because goats view fences differently than other animals. Most livestock see a fence and think barrier. Goats see a fence and think puzzle. And they're surprisingly good at solving puzzles. That's why experienced goat owners invest in proper fencing from day one. Not after the first escape. Before it. Because if goats teach farmers one lesson, it's this. Prevention is almost always cheaper than repair. But even with all those advantages, goats don't crack the top two. Because the next animal sits at the center of the American farming dream. It's the animal many people expected to see at number one. And yet it isn't. Sitting at number 2, we have chickens. At this point, you probably expected chickens to be number 1. Most people do. After all, chickens are everywhere. They're easy to find, easy to start, and for many people, they're the gateway into farming. But popularity and profitability are not always the same thing. And that's why chickens stop just short of the top spot. Now don't misunderstand. A well-managed chicken operation can be incredibly rewarding. Eggs, meat, breeding stock, fertilizer, multiple opportunities from a relatively small flock. And unlike some livestock, chickens fit comfortably into suburban and rural settings alike. That's a major advantage. But what really separates successful chicken keepers from everyone else isn't the birds. It's the market. Because 1 dozen eggs can be worth dramatically different amounts depending on who buys them. Wholesale, farmers market, direct customers, subscription egg routes, different markets, different outcomes. The bird doesn't change. The business model does. And that's a lesson every small farmer should remember. Now here's something many consumers don't realize. Not all eggs are created equal. Customers who have tasted truly fresh pasture-raised eggs often notice the difference immediately. The richer yolks, the deeper color, the stronger flavor. That experience creates loyal customers. And loyal customers create stable income. Which is why many small flock owners quietly build impressive side businesses from something that starts with just a few hens. But there is one limitation. Time. Chickens take months before they begin laying. Months. And while that isn't necessarily a problem, it matters when you're measuring return on investment. Because the animal sitting at number 1 breaks almost every rule people expect. It requires less space, less startup capital, and dramatically less time before generating revenue. Most people overlook it completely. And that's exactly why it earned the top spot. Sitting pretty at the top spot, we have Coturnix quail. Imagine walking into your backyard tomorrow morning. No large barn. No expensive pasture. No tractor. No acres of fencing. Just a simple setup occupying less space than most garden sheds. And yet that small space is producing food. Producing customers. Producing income. That's exactly why Coturnix quail have become one of the most overlooked opportunities in small-scale agriculture. Because almost nobody takes them seriously at first. When people think about profitable farm animals, they picture cattle, goats, sheep, maybe chickens. Almost nobody pictures a bird that weighs a few ounces. And that's where the opportunity begins. Because in agriculture, the best opportunities are often the ones everyone else ignores. Now let's start with the biggest advantage. Speed. Most farm animals require patience. Sometimes a lot of patience. Goats may take months before generating significant returns. Chickens often take 5 or 6 months before they begin laying. Quail operate on an entirely different timeline. Coturnix quail begin laying eggs at roughly 6 to 8 weeks of age. A bird hatched today can begin producing income before many livestock owners have even finished setting up their infrastructure. And that changes everything. Because faster production means faster feedback, faster learning, faster cash flow. And for beginners, that's incredibly valuable. You don't spend a year wondering whether your system works. You find out quickly. Now let's talk about space. Because this is where quail become almost unfair. Many people believe farming requires large amounts of land. That belief stops thousands of people from ever getting started. They tell themselves, "I'll start when I buy more land. I'll start when I move to the countryside. I'll start when I have a bigger property." Years pass. Nothing happens. Meanwhile, quail farmers are producing food from spaces smaller than a spare bedroom. Some operate from garages. Some use small sheds. Others use simple backyard structures. The point isn't that everyone should raise quail. The point is that lack of land is no longer an excuse. And that's a powerful realization. But here's where the economics become fascinating. A healthy Coturnix hen can produce between 250 and 300 eggs every year. That's remarkable for such a small bird. Now multiply that across a flock. Suddenly you're not collecting a few eggs. You're collecting thousands. And those eggs occupy a market many people never consider. Specialty food buyers, restaurants, farmers' markets, Asian grocery stores, health-conscious consumers, people who specifically seek out quail eggs. In other words, you're not competing directly with every carton of chicken eggs sitting in a supermarket cooler. You're operating in a different category. And different categories often mean different prices. But eggs are only one side of the equation. Because quail mature extremely quickly. Within a matter of weeks, they reach processing age. That's another reason small-scale producers love them. The same bird can generate value through eggs, meat, breeding stock, or hatching eggs. Multiple revenue streams. A pattern you've probably noticed throughout this countdown. The most profitable livestock businesses rarely depend on one source of income. They create options. And options create stability. Now here's something that surprises many people. Feed costs. Every livestock producer worries about feed. Feed is often one of the largest expenses in animal agriculture. A business can look profitable on paper and then lose money because feed costs spiral out of control. Quail have an advantage here. They're small. Very small. Which means they consume significantly less feed than larger poultry. Yet despite their size, they remain incredibly productive. That's one reason experienced producers often describe them as one of the most efficient birds in agriculture. And efficiency matters a lot. Because every dollar saved becomes profit. But before you rush out and order 50 quail chicks, there's something important you need to understand. The same lesson we've repeated throughout this entire video. Market first. Animals second. The biggest mistake beginners make is falling in love with production. They focus on raising animals, building cages, buying equipment, expanding numbers. Then they stop and ask, "Now who is going to buy all this?" That's backwards. Successful producers reverse the process. They find customers first. Then they increase production. Because 50 birds without buyers is not an opportunity. It's a problem. And that lesson applies whether you're raising quail, chickens, goats, cattle, or anything else on this list. The market comes first. Always. Now does this mean quail are perfect? Of course not. No livestock business is. Their market is more specialized. Some areas have stronger demand than others. Building customer relationships takes effort. And like every animal, they require proper management. But when we measure the things that matter most to small property owners, startup cost, space requirements, speed to revenue, Income potential. Return on investment. Coturnix quail consistently rise to the top, which is why they earn the #1 spot on this list. Not because they're the biggest, not because they're the most famous, because they're one of the most efficient ways to turn a small amount of space into a productive agricultural system. So what should you take away from all of this? The biggest lesson is much simpler. The most successful small farmers don't choose animals based on popularity. They choose animals based on fit. Fit for their land. Fit for their budget. Fit for their lifestyle. Fit for their local market. A quarter-acre property has different opportunities than 50 acres. A retiree has different goals than a full-time farmer. A backyard setup has different advantages than a commercial operation. And that's okay. Success in agriculture isn't about copying somebody else's farm. It's about building the right system for your situation. The good news: you don't need hundreds of acres. You don't need expensive machinery. And you don't need to do everything at once. Many successful farms started with one good decision. One animal. One customer. One small system that worked. Then they built from there. And if there's one theme that appeared over and over throughout this countdown, it's this. The farmers making the most from small properties aren't necessarily working harder. They're working smarter. They're choosing direct markets, building customer relationships, creating multiple income streams, and focusing on value instead of volume. That's where the real opportunity is. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which animal surprised you the most? Was it turkeys, quail, pigs, goats? Or are you already raising one of the animals on this list? Drop a comment below and let us know. And if you found this video helpful, subscribe to Farm Wealth Hub. Every week we break down practical farming systems, profitable livestock opportunities, and real-world strategies designed for ordinary people with ordinary land. Because sometimes the biggest opportunities aren't hiding on massive farms. They're hiding in the backyard. And we'll see you in the next video.